Maybe nobody's perfect, but Billy Wilder comes as close to it as you'll find among filmmakers in Hollywood today, and also yesterday. I'm Jack Lemmon, and I was fortunate enough to make a half a dozen pictures with Billy and had a chance to watch him up close. As writer, director, and producer, Billy Wilder is responsible for more classic films than any of his contemporaries. But it's his talent as a writer on which all of them are based. Audiences like to believe that actors make up the lines as they go along, but I can tell you that we don't, although some of us try, but not with Billy Wilder. Vienna, 1908. That's Billy in the center. His parents had wanted a girl, so they put him in a dress. At the tender age of 2, Billy Wilder already began rehearsing for Some Like It Hot. But that film, the first I made with Billy, with Tony Curtis and Marilyn Monroe, was a long way off in Billy's crowded future. It was only one movie in his astonishing list of film credits extending over 6 decades, from 1929 through 1989, including some of the most memorable films ever made. From farce like The Major and the Minor to film noir like Sunset Boulevard. In the words of one film critic, early on, he developed the tightly woven, intricate narrative structures marked by incredible reversals, paradoxes, and inversions that would characterize his best American work. Another put it more simply, Billy Wilder has a brain full of razor blades. Wilder arrived in Hollywood in 1933, part of a large wave of German and Austrian talent whose exit from Europe was hurried immeasurably by the rise to power of that perfect heavy, Adolf Schicklgruber, also known as Adolf Hitler. In 1938, Billy and screenwriter Charles Brackett began a collaboration that quickly made them one of Hollywood's hottest teams, writing such screenplays as Bluebeard's Eighth Wife, Midnight, Ninotchka, and Ball of Fire. Billy continued writing his own screenplays even after he began directing such films as The Major and the Minor and Double Indemnity. Back with Brackett at Paramount, he wrote and directed The Lost Weekend and Sunset Boulevard. Then in 1957, he began a collaboration with a new partner, screenwriter I.A.L. Diamond. Billy and his writing together and Billy directing The Apartment, Irma la Douce, and Some Like It Hot, among many others, until Diamond's untimely death. Talent cannot be taught, but Billy Wilder can teach us a great deal about the technique of screenwriting, which he has studied for 60 years in the kindergarten known as Hollywood. The Foundation's cameras caught up with that brain full of razor blades in his offices in Beverly Hills. Asking the questions, you may occasionally hear the voices of Jeff Silverman, screenwriter and journalist, Paul Lucy, formerly of the faculty of the USC Film School, and Mel Shavelson, president of the Writers Guild Foundation. And I'll get out of the way.
Billy, how would you determine structure?
Well, structure to me is, compare it with building a house. You have to have a base where the house is going to stand. You have to have walls. You have to have pillars that are going to hold it up, the staircase, the second story, or whatever. It is a kind of a mixture. Writing a movie is a mixture of architecture and, forgive me the pompous word, poetry or storytelling on a certain level. But it has to have a very solid thing so that the second act follows the first act, and it's strong enough to keep the audience in the seats to see the third act, what is happening there. But you need that very, very, very strongly. It's not that I make myself a drawing and a blueprint, and it's just kind of an instinctive thing. I'm talking about myself because you talk to another 500 writers, everybody has got his own method. Some just start writing, you know, kind of, some have the kind of flighty mind of we have a very good example now, Forrest Gump, you know, the writers who function like Forrest Gump. You don't know where it's going, but you can't do that with a picture. I mean, I couldn't do it with a picture.
Well, how do you do it?
I tell you, mine is kind of another unique thing that I cannot, I don't like it. If you write a scene and we say we'll fix that later, we will manicure it and go to the next scene, I just go back to the first scene and until it is about as good as possible. I may change something subsequently, but I never write first version, second version, third version. If you know what I mean.
One of the things about your films is that there are so many good parts in them, from the small players to the lead players. What do you feel is a basic ingredient of a good part in a screenplay?
Well, to begin with, the better the part, the better an actor you should get, and the good actors, even so it may be small. If you run a football team, get yourself Heisman Trophy winners, get yourself the most expensive because they're the best. And then you're a great coach. The part must contain good thoughts, it has to make sense so that you can sell that something. It has to have originality. It has to belong. It should not be like, you're having a picture here and then you have the comedian and he's doing a juggling act on the side. He has to be an intimate part of, an intricate part of the story itself, of the picture itself. It has something to do with the important 6 or 8 hinges in the picture. And the most important thing is that he must know where the joke is. He must know where, not the joke, sometimes it's serious too. He must make an impact, and the audience must wish to see him again in the picture. And there were those guys, but at Warner Brothers, for instance, talking about smaller parts, they had that area of very, very good people, the Bogarts and the Jimmy Cagneys and God knows what. But sitting there on the bench, where people who today would be big stars on television for sure, like George Sanders, like Eddie Robinson, like people that would be great actors today. They were then, they were like our former president. He was sitting there. Once in a while, he played an intimate friend of Jimmy Cagney, but he didn't play the Jimmy Cagney part. He would come. I remember we were doing the Lost Weekend, and he would come at 6 o'clock to pick up his wife, his then wife, Jane Wyman, wonderful actress. She played the lead in Lost Weekend, and they were married, and he came to pick her up. But there was always kind of a little look of anger in his eyes, I detected. Why always Holden? Why never Reagan? It's a question I cannot answer.
When you wrote your characters,
Yeah.
did you build them from a core? Or
Absolutely.
Did
They were written for somebody, and if you didn't find that man, the 10% was lost, even if you got another very good actor. It's just. But if you work with an actor, truly an actor, like for instance, let's take Jack Lemmon, or we talked about Jack before. Let's take Walter Matthau. Now there's something that you can. He comes with a basket full of suggestions how you can play that, this way or that way, this accent, this walk, maybe here a little limp, maybe, and it is just a joy. You just have to you are just like a kid in a candy shop. You can pick and take. Other actors are just the same damn thing along the same railroad tracks, and it would always be the same. Not interesting, but a character, a matter can make a brand new character out of it, and you get that.
How do you go about developing your characters?
I tell you, I learned that from Charles Lawton. We were doing a picture called Witness for the Prosecution, and the first 2 days he was rather shaky, and then the third day he would come to me and say, "I got it. Let's do the first 2 days again," which I very often do, because you don't know the crew, you don't know how it's going to sound. You just kind of more or less you sort of test it. He searches in his memory for a character that he had known and he then plays that character. He was searching for a judge or a lawyer that he knew. It was in the legal profession, and once he gets the sound of that guy, and the manner of walking, of looking, he's got it. But that goes with every picture. He just tries to fix on somebody that knows, and he uses it. He elaborates on it naturally, but he uses it to be in the right key, as you would say, on the screen. You cannot take a character of one of your friends or people that you know, but and make him into a murderer. You have to plant that thing within that character. It was not very easy with Fred McMurray in Double Indemnity to make him into a murderer, but you had to believe it. You had to believe it, and you had to have. I was trying very hard, a certain amount of pity that this guy was led into something which I saw it with my own eyes how he fell, and I was worried about him, and he did it, and I understand why he did it, but because I object to it. You have to plant things. You have a character, but you have to plant things, streaks in his character, moments, seconds, where he makes a decision, and you say that goes with that guy. You know, this is what else did I expect? It's no surprise. It gets to be logical to the audience. If you write a good part, help yourself by getting the best actor to do it. Mr. Capra once said something very true. He says, if I have a guy, a yellow cab man, coming and saying the taxi's here, I take somebody who gets $500. Now I can take anybody on the street, you know, will do it for $5, but it's not going to be right. Have the best casting in the world for that part. And the Italians can do it. They can take somebody from the street and make him an actor. But the picture is going to be 10 times as expensive because you'll have to shoot that picture with the dilettante, no matter how talented. The shooting time would be double as long as a normal actor.
When you're actually writing a script, how much do you worry about the camera angles? What do you worry about when you're going to get it on the set?
Whether it's possible to photograph it, you know, it's just, you cannot photograph certain things are unphotographable. No, I don't indulge in camera tricks. I don't want one director tell to the other one. She said, "Did you see the setups that he has? It's terrific what the guy did with the camera." I said, "No, I just photographed it as simply as possible, but as elegantly as possible. You will never see a surprising shot from the point of view of Santa Claus, as you said before, shooting through the fireplace at a scene. From the point of view of who is there? Santa Claus, maybe he's looking at that scene. No, as simple as possible. You should, in my opinion, you know, when you do a picture, certainly a serious picture, you should not see where the cut was. It should all flow naturally, logically. But people think they would like to be a director because they're going to be sitting on the dolly and they say higher, 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 and then from up there they're going to, and you say, my God, there's a burglar up there in the roof. He came to the roof and he's watching that scene.
How specific are you in that pile of scripts that you have on in that shelf of scripts that you have on the shelf? If I were to take a script down, how specific are you in stage directions and camera moves?
It says number 13, living room. And then comes 7 pages of dialogue. No close up, no cut here, camera, pans, nothing. Since I'm the director, but if you do it, if you were writing for a director, you have to be a little bit more careful. And as I once said, somebody asked me, is it really a big advantage if a director also writes? And I said, no, it's not a big direction, not a big help if a director also knows how to write. But what is absolutely necessary is that he knows how to read. They didn't like that line at the director's guild, but I mean it because I would sometimes get on the set. The writer is not in a, has no high standing. Some may be a little higher standing than that. But when you work for Paramount, you are supposed to be on the fourth floor and write the next picture. Not watch the director shooting the last script that you did. But you watch and then you just take the director to the side and say, my God, this guy does not quite know what the point of the picture is. Now, of course, I would have still, believe me, I still would be a director. I mean, I still would be no director but a writer if there was a Lubitsch to direct it, or a Ford, or a Buñuel, or I can mention 50 that I respect very, very, very highly. It is not. It is. I don't jump with joy, you know, to directing. It's a very, very tough job.
So you see that directing then as an extension of the writing.
Overwriting, exactly. Get the script on the screen, and don't do any complex trick shots that take 2 days to light, and then you don't want it anyway. You're going to cut it up. This is like, I could not understand why Hitchcock, surely a very good director, he insisted on making a picture in 8 reels, but 8 setups, only 8 setups. He would not cut within the reel. The reel was over, he had to cut. He would always have that tricks like, which I could not stand, that instead of resolving at the end of the reel, he would go down the back of an actor who wore a black suit. And then he would start with that. So it looks, I mean, I have no ambition like this to have a whole picture in 7 setups. Who cares?
Speaking as a writer, what's changed the most in pictures today as to the way they were 10, 15 years ago in the writing? Do they write differently today, do you think, or is it just a censorship that's different?
The studios are now copying more successful pictures. In other words, if there is a Godzilla, there is going to be a Jurassic Park. You know, if there is a Stallone picture in this background, there's going to be a Stallone picture. Other background, they love number 2s, number 3s, number 4s of pictures because they already know what the theme, as they would say, is, and it's going to be just a continuation of that thing. But if you bring them a story that is totally original, right? They say, this is very interesting, but I've never seen it before. You said that this is why I would like to make it, because you've never seen it before. But how do we know that this is going to be successful? No, look, there's so many nice things, but I'm not familiar with that. I would have sleepless nights, you know, because it's going to be a $30 million picture, and it's never been tried before. Never been tried before. Not so tough then than it is today, because then it was, I don't think I ever made a picture that cost more than $2 or $3 million. Most of them cost $800,000 or $900,000. But they made 50 pictures then. But now it becomes those enormous sums, and people who have not grown up in the motion picture industry, that's looking over your shoulder as the script is being written, and they say, my God, we're going to be in debt, we're going to dismiss secretaries, policemen, we're going to go, the Credit Lyonnais is going to cut off our Credit Lyonnais. You made good pictures, very good pictures, lousy pictures. You made 5 big hits that year, and you were even, and you went on. But it was not like you were shooting the New Testament, that this is going to be the beginning and the end of everything. It's just a picture. I don't know anybody who's running a studio now. I would not know where to go and who to pitch to, as they say. I know that face vaguely on the other side of that desk, but that's the mailman from William Morris. That's funny. And then I just say, look, you the telephone calls, everything. I come some other time, you know, when there are fewer calls and you're a little older. And I just leave very quietly, and that's it. What should a future screenwriter, what should he learn? How should he How should he start? Should he read books? Should he go to seminars? You know, with all of that stuff that is going to be pumped into him, there's still that one element X, you know, that cannot be taught, and that is a gift to dramatize something, a gift to attract attention and keep the audience, and knowing how restless they are, how painful it is that in the very first 20 minutes of the picture where you're unfolding what you're going to tell them, if they get up to get some more popcorn or the kid has got to pee, you have to find a thing that grabs them by the throat and keeps them in the audience. Just don't talk to them. You have to get the hook, the big hook that keeps them there, and then don't let go, because they are very, very fickle. Keep working on that throat. Keep getting tighter and tighter.
Are there surefire hooks to start out with?
Of course, there are surefire hooks, but they have all been used and used. Somebody shouts, you start on a sex scene right smack back. Of course, they're gonna. But then you make it very difficult, you know, because where do you go? But by this time, you know, sex doesn't even hold them, because you go and see movies. I saw a movie the other day, and there were two people making it under the titles. And there was somebody sitting next to me. He says that's her left breast. He says, no, that's his right knee. We were trying to figure out this kind of like a what do you call that puzzle which you have to put together, you know, things cut out.
Jigsaw.
What?
Jigsaw.
Like a jigsaw puzzle, you know, how they're going to do this. It's very, very, very difficult. And the subtler you are, and the more elegant you are, and yet hold them, the better a writer you are. But you must learn what is drama. What by drama I mean what is something that is being shown to you, and it engages you. It keeps your interest more and more.
How do you write an original? Something like The Apartment. You told us you got the inspiration for that from a picture David Lean had directed.
It was called Brief Encounter, one of his best pictures. Black and white, very simple, married woman, a lover who lives in London, and she would come and see him, and he would use a friend's apartment for his tryst, or whatever you want to call it. And I remember we were shooting Some Like It Hot, and we were halfway through, and I was in love with Lemmon, and I just thought there's an enormous talent. I did not know him before, and if I could get him for a next picture, but what kind of a next picture can we find? And I have drawers full of first acts, of characters, of curtains, of themes for future pictures, and I remember that I had something there that fitted him, and I found it, and it was a 5-page outline for the apartment, namely the story of the friend whose apartment the leading man was using. And the line just very simply started with, but what about the man who has to crawl back into his warm bed? What happens to him? And I decided that would be a good character to start with. And Lemmon was just not really a leading man in the sense, you know, of Richard Barthelmess or of Clark Gable. He was a leading man, but there was something funny and pathetic at the same time.
How did you turn a 5-page outline into a screenplay?
Well, the most important thing to find is if you have a second act, curtain. It's the curtain that is so important, because it launches the end of the picture, whether it should be tragic, whether it should be funny, but you have the material there. You can go either way, preferably as a surprise to the audience. As I remember correctly, I was working with I.L. Diamond, my collaborator and much lamented collaborator I've been working for 25 years, and he died, and I really found excuses to do something else but pictures, but I miss him terribly. But so we met, and I discussed that idea with him. He was very much for it. And then we just said, well, this guy is an employee in a big, in this case, insurance company. Then we go into details. We just vaguely know, you know, what the second act curtain is. We know where we are going. We have to find the mechanics of that thing, and then write scenes hiding the mechanics. They should not see. They should not see as to what holds it up. It should just go normally. That's, of course, this is logical. So we just start fooling around with one or two scenes. How do people talk? Then those wonderful days where you just have nothing else to do except find new names for the characters. You know, this is such fun, I can't tell you. And who do we want? Which guy whom we don't like gets to play the nasty part and stuff like that.
So you're sitting in a room. How would you go about building a scene?
He sits at the typewriter. First he sits, and I sit, and then we exchange reporter for variety, blah blah blah. Drink our coffee, and then nothing. Some days absolutely nothing until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And that was one of his many great qualities, was not a man who just spoke. He said something, but he never just spoke just to hear his own voice, just to fill the vacuum. We never felt the vacuum. We felt very secure. We had our deals, and we're gonna. And if we start the picture 6 weeks later, so much the better. Nobody's going to kick us out. The sets were not going up yet, you know. So we would be sitting in that office there at Goldwyn. We had the office at Goldwyn, so we did not work for Goldwyn. United Artists had certain space there. And he would, if we are ready to do a scene, you know, he would go to the typewriter, and I had a kind of a big standing desk, you know, and I had the yellow tablet, and I would do it in pencil because I can't typewrite either. I cannot do anything, as you would find out. And I would be writing the scene, you know, then we would discuss it, and we would compare, and then there was a wonderful understanding between us two. If I'm very strongly defending my version, it would be tough for me to win it. I then just take the thing and throw it in the waste paper basket. The same thing with him. We start anew, and if there's something that we both like, that's it. But just because I'm also the producer and the director, I would not throw my weight around, because it was his arguments were logical, and I saw that. And the same thing with his suggestion. I said, I don't think so. Boom.
So you would basically sit down, discuss the scene.
Yeah.
He would go to his typewriter and write it. You would go to your desk and write it.
I would kind of half dictate the thing, and we would talk as he's typing, or I would block it out on a yellow tablet and sometimes very good. Sometimes we combine the two things. It's just, but all very, very friendly, and never, you know, like they have in many pictures, in every picture where they have collaborators on films. It was kind of like room service, you know. It was just all madness, like the cabin on the boat in the Marx Brothers picture. You know, they would find a line, you know, which is a pretty good line. They would kiss each other. They would jump on the desk, on the couch. They would be screaming, "We got it, we got it, we got it." No, nothing. It was just all very cool, very collected, very, very, very critical of the thing. And I don't remember in all those years, and I worked with him like 20 or 25 years, that he would ever say, if I came with a suggestion, "That's marvelous, that's great." His highest compliment always was, "Why not?" The theme was right there. The theme was that a schnook desperately wants a career, the American sickness, higher, higher, better, better, better. ultimately, when he makes it up to the situation where he's made vice president of the company, that's when he doesn't want it anymore. Thinking about casting, as a matter of fact, I spent like a day and a half. The part of Mr. Sheldrake, who was the head of the insurance company, was cast with Paul Douglas. You remember Paul Douglas, the guy from Letter to Three Wives, and he played on the stage. He played that big ironmonger with Born Yesterday. Absolutely wonderful, wonderful actor. And it's about that. This is we are about to start shooting next week. This is a later event, and we hear that Douglas had a heart attack, and he's dead. He's under the picture. And who is our wonderful friend, who is not only very good, but he is our salvation. Fred McMurray. He saved us once in what was the first picture I did? Double Indemnity, where he just absolutely said, no, I could not do it. I just made a deal with Disney, and I'm driving that crazy Volkswagen, and I'm doing the Nutty Professor, and the kids love me. If they now see me, a murderer in Double Indemnity, he says, I had tried every leading man in Hollywood to take that part, but nobody wanted to play a murderer, except Stanley, because he was smart. So I talked him into it. Now I called him again about this part. He says, well, I read that script. Send him the script. I read that script. For God's sake, I'm the murderer. Now I should play the guy who's cheating on the wife. I'm still with Disney. He says, oh, they didn't kick you out, did they? He says, no, as a matter of fact, I'm popular now. As a matter of fact, I get many fan letters. He says, do you do it? He says, no. And then pause. He says, yes, I do it. So it's 2 days of negotiations, wonderful, away from the writing business, and getting, as we say, a little perspective on what we had there.
What about Jack Lemmon's character?
I did not believe that Lemmon could really lend himself to it voluntarily, or even suggest it to somebody, hey, would you like to use my apartment? No, there's a guy who was working above him, it was his superior, who said, look, I live in Long Island, and I'm meeting my wife outside the theater because we're going to see a Broadway play, and I brought my dark suit, so that can I use your apartment because it's close to the theater. It's just going to be half an hour. Would you be my guest? Of course.
But I promised the guy I'd be out of here by 8 o'clock positively.
What guy? Whose apartment is this, anyway?
What's the difference? Some schnook that works in the office.
Now, 2 weeks later, the guy came again. And then another guy came up from another department, actuarial department, whatever they had there. And would say, I understand that you're a very nice guy, and you did him a favor. And suddenly there's a key making the rounds, and he has a whole kind of thing like made out a schedule for the guys. On Monday, Mr. Metlock. On Friday, Mr. Zuskind. On blah, 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 blah. And we also knew, we found out very quickly that the girl in that story must be waking in that outfit. And we took a little liberty, but that still existed in those days. There are no elevator girls anymore. But elevator girl was good because she can appear, she can disappear, she can go, she can go. And he loves her, but he's such a Nevi kind of, he's afraid, that guy is afraid of to confront her, that he's in love with her. So we had this. Then we came up with a scene, end of the first act now, that the head of the company, played by Fred McMurray, calls him in and says, I understand that there's a key making the rounds here, a key to your apartment. And the guy thinks he's going to be kicked out, apologizes all over the place. sorry, I just did somebody a favor. And now we find out that it is McMurray who needs the key.
Oh, put me down for Thursday again.
Roger. And I'll get that other key.
And then the connection was very quick, that he needs it because he wants to do it to Shirley MacLaine, who's the elevator girl. By lying to her, even that is kind of whitewashing her too, it's the truth. By lying to her that he is about to get a divorce, she knows that he's a married man. Now you had the basic structure of, you can go first act, you can go second act.
Now, but by the end of Act One,
yeah.
when you sat down and you had finished Act One, or
Yeah.
you had planned Act One,
Yeah.
did you know where Act Two and Act Three were going to go at that point?
No, we were stuck there. We were stuck there until the idea came up that the telephone operator in the office of Fred McMurray was once a girlfriend of Fred McMurray. And she, because she wakes the telephone, right, and she listens in, she is the whole crux of the thing. She calls the wife and tells her what her husband is doing. In other words, he is trapped. And whatever he lied to Shirley MacLaine, that he is sooner or later there's going to be a divorce because, you know, my wife and I, he didn't think, or there's no idea of doing anything like that. He's got children, he's got a house in Long Island. But now, and that's third act now, what I think was cleverly handled was that he says, guess what? I'm getting a divorce. I told her I've had it. Actually, the wife threw him out, right? So now he can really marry her. He can really kind of make whatever he lied about true. But now she doesn't want him anymore. You remember there's that scene, New Year's Eve, when it gets black at midnight, the light goes on, and she thinks of Jack Lemmon, whom she likes enormously. It built. And he, after the old lang syne, the lights go on again, and he looks and there's an empty chair there across the table.
Fran? Where are you, Fran?
Now we show Shirley MacLaine having abandoned Fred McMurray, who now wants to marry her, or at least says so, and she's running toward the apartment of where Lemmon lives, and she's running up the stairs, and suddenly there's a shot.
Are you all right?
I'm fine.
Are you sure? How's your knee?
I'm fine all over.
And that's the end of the love story. You know, she goes back, and they start finishing the gin game. They started when she was lying there in bed, half dead.
I love you, Miss Kubelik.
3. Queen.
Did you hear what I said, Miss Kubelik? I absolutely adore you.
Shut up and deal.
Billy, one thing I'd like to know, that picture was in black and white.
Yeah.
Is there a reason besides cost?
Let me answer that this way. There was no reason to make it in color.
Mm-hmm.
We were just making pictures in black and white, and we went on with hopefully a new story that's going to interest them. And color cannot add anything. It was a little bit more difficult. I love black and white pictures. It was more difficult when we were shooting Some Like It Hot, and we went to the projection room with Marilyn, and she looked and she said, "Oh my God, this is not in black and white. This is in black and white. This is not in color. I only make color pictures." And then I had to invent, and this was tougher than finding the plot. I said, we were making tests in color, but you know, the boys, when they're dressed as girls, the beard is coming through their eyes. Oh, I understand. I said, thank you. Jesus God.
Billy, what about Irma la Douce? That was a big musical in Paris, and you shot it in beautiful color, but you took out the music. I've never been able to understand. Why did you do that?
I never made a musical in my life. I never should. It's not my bag. Yeah, I didn't like the music. It was a big hit in Paris, but it was in a theater that I think was about 400 people in there. It was a big hit, and I kind of liked the comedic thing. And again, the lure of Lemmon. I'm a slave to his talent, and I didn't like the music, so I just left it out. But there were no good songs. I used a couple of songs, but they had nothing to do with Irma la Douce. But it did not quite come off. It is not. When I think of it or dream of it, there is no smile on my face. When we were writing the end of Some Like It Hot, we wrote it about the weekend before we shot it. Always good. We like to still keep writing the third act, knowing how the characters work out, how they play, how are they very good? Should they get more material? But then we were writing that scene in the motorboat with the two couples, and Lemmon tries to convince Joey Brown, you know, that he is not a woman. It's impossible. They cannot get married. You know, he cannot have children, and he smokes, and all kinds of things. And ultimately, he comes to life and says, for God's sake, he says, he takes his hairpiece off. He says, I'm a boy. And then we needed the final line. So he says, after a few minutes, he says, Joey Brown says, nobody's perfect. So I said, well, I tell you what, let's type it so that we can put it into mimeograph. And let's look at it. This is only Saturday, right? We have time until Monday morning when we see the scene. And we never came up with anything better.
I'm a man. Well, nobody's perfect.
The house exploded because it also was the end, you know, and we had no fear that somebody's going to step on his next line. There was no next line. Just boom. That was it.
What's interesting though is you're talking a couple of films now you've given examples of where you've been writing all the way through shooting. You didn't stay absolutely locked to the script.
No, we did not have. In most of the pictures that I'm shooting, there is a kind of an outline of the third act, and on weekends, especially now. In the olden days, you also wrote on Saturdays until noon, but now we have 2 days of Saturday and Sunday. We would meet and we would discuss what we did, and examine what is to be done. Can we improve? Or in the case of the third act, just write it from week to week, as it were, with a wonderful kind of profound feeling for what the picture is about. Everything would kind of come out. Suddenly what we had, suddenly we had to put it down, and then suddenly, if it was correct, what we had in the first and second act, suddenly it all came out in neon lights. It just added up. It was there. I think Julie Epstein told me that. He says he was writing with his brother, writing a picture to honors, and somebody would come and say, "What are you doing?" An executive, high executive. He said, "Why are you doing a picture about that?" No. He says, "What I mean is, I'm going a little deeper than that. What is the theme, the big theme of your picture?" And then he would just say, he says, "War is hell." There was no war, nothing. Oh, that's good, that's interesting, that's a good theme. Yeah, I like that, war is hell. It had nothing to do with it. You just have to give the big front office guy, you have to give him the feeling that they are doing something with the theme. The word theme suddenly came. But the actors, they would like a good story, something where you grab them as quickly by the throat as you can, and keep pressing. Don't let them go, because they're very flighty audiences, and make one scene follow logically and at a heightened tempo or a heightened level up to the very end, and then just that's it. And be very careful when you start writing it. Be very careful. I'm always aware of it, and I still make that same mistake. I repeat things. I don't trust the audience. I just finished Double Indemnity, and I had other projects. Brackett did not. He did not like the subject matter on Double Indemnity. It was just. But I did it. But I did not know what the hell we're going to do next. I'm going to go back to Brackett because I liked working with him, and he was an excellent collaborator. And I was on the train going to New York, and in Chicago, I saw a book, the bookstall there. It looked interesting, and I picked it up. It was The Lost Weekend by Charlie Jackson. And I read it between Chicago and New York, and I got to a telephone booth, and I called California, and I talked to Charles, and I said, look, I read that book. I don't know where it's in the bookstore, but go to the front office. Let's buy it. It's going to make you wonderful. And but it's one of the very rare things. Very often you get a book that the studio bought, and they said, will you do that? Well, in the olden days, when I was a very obedient servant, big company, 7 year deal, contract. I would do something that I did not believe in, but then slowly I kind of get out of it, and I still made wrong choices. But Lost Weekend, that was really a very, very easy picture to do. What was easy was that there was a territory which has not been used before, namely to make a serious picture about alcoholism. Until then, a drunken man was a funny man. He was walking backwards, and it was 4 in the morning. He was going up to his apartment backwards all the time. And the wife says, come on now, you have that brain operation in about 15 minutes. It's not to worry. And he goes back, Satchel is a doctor, is a surgeon. Big laugh, But to speak to people who are, this was the very beginnings of AAs,
What are the problems in adapting a book to the screen?
The readers I'm talking, they have read the novel. You hope that you bought a very popular novel. And you can't omit basic trends in that thing. You cannot omit basic characters. You have to have the big scenes. You can lead differently into it, or you can. Fortunately, once in a while it happens. Not always. That they say, "Hey, this is better than the book."
Is it easier to work from a book that's a little more obscure than a book that everybody knows and everybody respects?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I was not around, when they were fiddling around with Gone with the Wind, but I think it's easier if you are an adapter. But if you are a finder, you much rather have an original story of yours. There's much more joy in that and much more freedom. But Gone with the Wind didn't do so poorly. I always wanted to do a Hollywood picture because I know it is my background, I know the people, but by the same token I did not know that it's much more difficult to make a picture about something that not only I but everybody else knows in this community. So it is real and it works. I was very much taken by the original Stars Born picture of Mr. Selznick. And I said, my God, one day I should do a Hollywood picture. It's going to be interesting. And first I was fooling around. I have my notes someplace here, the early notes like 35 years ago. I said, a comedy of an actress who had fallen between the cracks with the advent of sound. She just, the voice does not work. like John Gilbert, you know. He just did me 3 or 4 more pictures with Garb or somebody else, but they were sound pictures, and it just didn't sound right. So she's out of the business, would like to come back. And I thought of it as a comedy, and I wanted to make it with Mae West, believe it or not, you know. Those are the things that are going on. Then I forgot about it, and I made some other pictures with Brackett. With Brackett then at that time. And then one day I said, I dug that out, and there are some pretty good scenes, but I don't think it should be comedy. And I kind of had a vague outline with similarity to it. And Brackett liked it as well, and we started writing, and it was very difficult. It was very difficult because you know, if you make a picture that plays among at the dentist convention in Albany, you know, they will believe it. They don't know how. But pictures, you know, and relations in front offices, and you would like to be critical, but you cannot kind of do Emile Zola's J'accuse, you know, against Hollywood. It's too easy too. But in any case, after it was finished, Mr. Louis B. Mayer, having seen that at the showing at Paramount, I heard him talking to his henchmen, their whole group of Louis B. Mayer people. He says, "That son of a bitch Wilder," he says, "he's a foreigner," he says. We let him in. We gave him a life. We gave him a family, and now he's biting the hand that's been feeding him. And I got up to him, and the retinue of his. He says, "Mr. Louis B. Mayer, why don't you go and fuck yourself? My name is Wilder, and I did it, and I'm very proud of it." I mean, it was not that he was aghast, but the people around him. Les Majestés, what I have said to Queen Victoria, oh, go take him shit or something.
How long did it take, using that as an example, how long would it take to write that screenplay? Would it take 6 months? Would it take 3 months?
This took a rather long time. It was a complex character with a complex picture with complex characters that we had to kind of explore. But we were very lucky. This picture could not be made today. Look, the difficulties they have with the stage thing. We needed a studio where we had to photograph. We were in a studio at Paramount. We needed, because that was her last director, we needed Mr. DeMille. We got Mr. DeMille.
Hello, Mr. DeMille.
It's good to see you.
The last time I saw you was someplace very gay. I remember waving to you. I was dancing on a table.
A lot of people were. Lindbergh had just landed in Paris.
We needed a guy who is her valet, who's running the house for her, who is an old-time director, which we find out later, and was married to her. Well, we took Stroheim, and we had a picture that Stroheim shot with Gloria Swanson, Queen Kelly, so we could run that. We needed Buster Keaton. We needed all kinds. H.P. Warner for that the bridge party there. We needed a young unknown actor who plays the unemployed writer, and if you want to, they kept the guy. And we found that guy. We had Montgomery Clift. It was a new thing from New York, and that was it. And that was like 3 days before we started shooting. Then his agent, a lady, I forget her name, she said to Mr. Montgomery Clift is not going to be in the picture. I advised him that if he makes that picture where he is having an affair with a woman twice his age, he is finished forever in Hollywood. Nobody will use him for any other picture. So the day before we started shooting, you know, we got Holden, a junior actor, under contract to Paramount and Columbia. I'd made one picture. What was it? The Golden Glove, some kind of a boxing picture. Golden Glove. That was. So I gave him the script. I said, Holden. I gave him the script, and he came back like an hour and a half later. He says, I must play that. Absolutely perfect. Just an unknown writer, you know, but he should be an actor also. We had no leading lady. I've been phoning Pola Negri, and she was talking in Polish to me with an accent, you know, you would not believe. We were talking. We went up to see it at Fairbanks. Mary Pickford, what was the name of Pig Fair? Not me, Brackett, the Republican. He started telling her the story. And I was blanching. I said, "Oh my God!" And she finds out that he's gonna pay the guy to sleep with her. And I said, "Charlie, I think we made a mistake. I think that this is below the level of Miss Pickford. Miss Pickford is and I can't see. This is impossible. Forgive us, please. Let's go, Charlie. Let's go quick." And we just kind of. Then there was just. Every actress with the little, then we got Swanson, and we would go to the front office. I think it was Barry De Silva then who was in the studio. And she says, "For Christ's sake, Swanson, that's a piece of used toilet paper. You're crazy. She's acting all over the place like this." She says, "But that's what I want. I want to have a silent actress play now with sound, and we just see the exaggerations, the wildness, the craziness." Now, as they write about the picture or the play, it says, of course, it is lacking the genius of Gloria Swanson. We were very lucky. That was one of those things, you know, where we just kind of falling into a tub of butter. You know, it was easy. It just worked itself into something real and in something that could happen. And people that we knew, and we did not lie about them, and then we had, you know, if you have a picture, you know, where the leading man's line was very simple. I came to Hollywood because I wanted the pool. I got the pool, and I died in the pool. Once we had that, you know, we had the whole thing.
Nobody important, really. Just a movie writer with a couple of B pictures to his credit. The poor dope. He always wanted a pool.
You did have trouble at the first preview when you opened in the morgue, didn't you?
When we opened the morgue, there was a whole scene in the morgue. Was we see that car from the morgue driving at dawn, you know, driving into the morgue to take the downtown, and they take the body and they put the sheet over it, no identification, so they put on a little tag with a little wire, they put on John Doe, so they put it over the big toe of that guy. They would wheel that thing into the morgue where there's 6 other corpses, I remember. And we slowly kind of would dissolve through the sheet at the faces, and there are 6 people who had died and were there in the morgue. And they were telling each other stories that led to their deaths. There would be a boy, 13 years, he drowned in Santa Monica. There would be a guy from the Middle West. He sold everything and bought himself an avocado ranch in El Segundo, and had a heart attack and died. And so then we go to Holden, and he tells his story. And then we start with his voice, dead man's voice. And we would preview the picture. We did not want to preview the picture in Hollywood because there were too many Hollywood people. We would not get the proper response because this Hollywood picture had to play in Utah and had to play in New Jersey. But the picture starts in Evanston, Illinois. I'll never forget it, the home of Northwestern University. And the picture starts, and about a minute and a half in there, after the title, they're putting that thing with the wire, the tag, you know, on the big toe. The biggest laugh I've ever had in a picture. I said, Jesus, what? They felt tickled, you know, the audience felt tickled. You never know how they're going to react. So I get a little bit sick to my stomach. I excuse myself. I walk out, and I sit on some steps leading down to the restrooms. And I hear some steps. There's a woman also coming out of the theater with a big head full of flowers, kind of, and very, very made up. the most elegant woman I imagine ever. And she turns at me and she says, have you ever seen shit like this before in your life? And I says, I don't think so. Very seriously. So then we come back, what are we going to do? And I said, we're just going to cut it. We're just going to cut it, and we're just going to have the police arrive, and there's going to be a voice. And it's the voice of a dead man. Prove to us that dead men don't talk. They took it. They took it because it was a very, very quick getting into the story.
How did you finish the story?
The Sunset Boulevard had that thing, you know, the pool and getting it, and then there was no other ending except it's being shot. The daring thing was that after the murder and the police and all of that thing, and one character I could not get in, because that would have been wonderful, that the newspaper people are there and telephoning, and on one phone I had Hedda Harper, on the other phone I wanted to have what's the name of the other gossip woman? It starts with who?
Luella Parsons.
Luella Parsons. And she's on the upper phone, lower phone, get off here, you bitch. I could not get her because she knew that Hedda Harper was an experienced actress. But no executive would come and say, now, just a second. I mean, is there going to be a lawsuit? Is she going to be arrested? Is she going to be in jail? I said, I have no idea. All I know is she's Miss Sugar. That's all. That's the ending. She talks to the audience.
I can't go on with the scene. I'm too happy. Mr. DeMille, do you mind if I say a few words? Thank you. I just want to tell you all how happy I am to be back in the studio, making a picture again. You don't know how much I've missed all of you. And I promise you I'll never desert you again. Because after Salome, we'll make another picture and another picture. You see, this is my life. It always will be. There's nothing else. Just us. And the cameras. And those wonderful people out there in the dark. All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
So Gloria Swanson talked to the audience the way Billy Wilder has talked to audiences for over 50 years, unforgettably, brilliantly, and also, like Norma Desmond, a little bit Meshuggah. I'm fortunate he was crazy enough to cast me in so many of his films, and thank you, Billy. You ran a wonderful asylum. When do we start the next one? I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. Wilder.